Madeline has to go, right? She waited for Tristan for 10 years. What guy could resist that kind of devotion? Seriously. She's been married, but come on, we all know who owns her heart. The ultimate tragic romance. I could feed off this drama forever. It's too good. I stared at the messages cascading down the screen. My fingers tightened unconsciously around the edges of my phone, but my eyes drifted back to Madeline. She slept so peacefully. Her breathing was a steady, quiet rhythm, her elegant profile softened by the warm glow of the nightlight. 15 years. It had been 15 long years since my senior year of high school, the year I woke up and realized I was just an extra in this narrative, a guy whose name people barely remembered. When I got to college, the first thing I did was gravitate toward Tristan Crawford. He was the protagonist. The sun around which everyone else orbited. Relying on my uncanny intuition for how his story was supposed to go, I showed up exactly when he needed a wingman. I said exactly what he needed to hear when his ego took a hit. Seamlessly, inevitably, I became his best friend. Everyone used to say, Cameron Wright, you're so lucky to be Tristan's brother-in-arms. Only I knew the truth. I was just basking in the residual glow of his main character energy, using his light to carve out a slightly smoother path for my own life. For 4 years of undergrad, I shadowed Tristan to every exclusive fraternity mixer and Hamptons weekend, infiltrating his elite circle. That was how I met Madeline Sinclair. She came from old money. She had a razor-sharp intellect, top of her class grades, and eyes that saw absolutely no one but Tristan. Until graduation year. That was when Tristan chose Bernice Kensington, the stunning, equally wealthy campus darling, and moved to London with her. Right before he left, Tristan threw an arm around my shoulder, flashing that signature, blinding smile. Cameron, Madeline is an incredible woman. You guys should get together. It would give me peace of mind. I looked at his bright, oblivious smile, knowing the truth better than anyone. Madeline's heart belonged entirely to him. I also knew that, according to the unwritten script of this world, Tristan would return a decade later, and Madeline would pack up our child and run straight back into his arms. But so what? Madeline's pedigree, her education, her family's capital, they were stepping stones a guy from my middle-class background couldn't reach in 3 lifetimes. Marrying her meant I could climb. I could access a higher echelon, network with the right investors, and build my own empire. As for love, I never expected it. So, when Tristan played matchmaker, I didn't hesitate to say yes to Madeline. I was as cold and calculating as a corporate raider executing a merger. I had every step mapped out. I would use her family's connections to launch my tech startup. I would build my own wealth. And in 10 years, when Tristan inevitably returned and Madeline inevitably cheated, I would file for a very public, very justified divorce, take half of everything, and secure my absolute freedom. I calculated every variable. Except one. I didn't factor in how a human heart can soften under the quiet, steady weight of a shared life. In our 3rd year of marriage, my company finally gained traction. Madeline, without ever asking for credit, quietly fed me high-level industry contacts. In our 5th year, our daughter, Sophie, was born. Madeline was incredibly clumsy at first, but she learned to be a mother with an exhausting, fiercely tender devotion. In our 8th year, my firm hit a massive cash flow crisis. Without a word, she liquidated her personal trust to help me weather the storm. 10 years. Everyone told me, Cameron, you married a truly good woman. And I almost fooled myself into believing it. I almost believed that living like this, for the rest of our lives, wouldn't be so bad. But now, Tristan was back. The narrative was violently course-correcting. I looked at the endless notifications lighting up the group chat, and the last lingering traces of hesitation in my chest were ruthlessly crushed by logic. Fine. This would be my final test for her. If, this time, she chose me, if she chose this home we built, I would bury my grand plan. I would pretend I never saw the messages. I would stay in this marriage forever. But if she chose Tristan, then it was time to close the net. The next morning, sunlight slipped through the gap in the blackout curtains. Madeline was already awake, lying on her side, watching me. Her voice carried the raspy, intimate weight of sleep. You're up. Yeah, I murmured. I stretched, pretending the thought had just casually crossed my mind. By the way, the alumni chat blew up last night. Tristan is back from London. He's putting together a get-together this weekend. You going? Madeline's movement stalled for a fraction of a second. Then she rolled onto her back, staring blankly at the ceiling. Her tone was flat. No. Why not? I propped myself up on one elbow to look at her. Back in the day, you guys. She cut me off, turning her head to meet my eyes. Her gaze was eerily calm. There's no point. It's all in the past. Besides, it's just a bunch of people who barely know each other anymore, pretending to be close and stroking each other's egos. It sounds exhausting. I didn't say a word. I just waited. She shifted closer, burying her face against my chest. Her voice was muffled against my skin. You shouldn't go either. Sophie has her ballet grading exam this weekend. One of us needs to be there. If you go, who's going to take care of her? I held her in the quiet room. I breathed in the familiar, expensive scent of her shampoo. I let the silence stretch for several long seconds before I spoke softly. You're right. I'll skip it. Friday evening, Madeline came home earlier than usual. During dinner, she casually placed a piece of roasted chicken onto my plate, her voice the picture of domestic warmth. Oh, I almost forgot. I have to pull some overtime this weekend. We have a massive project launching, and I need to push the timeline. My fork hovered in the air. I looked up at her. Both days. Yeah, I'll probably be at the office pretty late, she nodded, quickly adding, I'll drop Sophie off at my parents' place tomorrow morning. They can take her for the weekend. You should just rest. You've been working so hard with the kid lately. I looked at her gentle, flawless expression. I smiled and nodded. But deep in my chest, that final, pathetic ember of hope went ice cold. All right. Just don't overwork yourself. Take care of your health. Madeline looked at me, her eyes pooling with affection. You're always the sweetest husband. Saturday morning, Madeline slipped out of bed with practiced stealth. I kept my eyes shut, feigning heavy sleep. I felt her lean over, pressing a soft kiss to my forehead. I felt her tuck the duvet securely around my shoulders. Then, the soft padding of her footsteps retreating. When the front door clicked shut, my eyes snapped open. 10 minutes later, I was dressed in dark clothes, a baseball cap pulled low, and a surgical mask covering my face. I hailed a cab and told the driver to follow her out. She didn't head toward the financial district where her firm was located. Instead, her car glided toward the east side, into the heart of the city's most exclusive private club district. She pulled up to the valet stand of a members-only lounge. I had the cab driver pull over half a block away. Through the smudged glass of the taxi window, I watched her step out. And then I saw Tristan. He was draped in designer clothes, his hair styled to that effortless, messy perfection. He stood by the entrance, wearing that same, radiant, arrogant smile. 10 years had passed, but he hadn't changed a bit. He was still the untouchable golden boy. Madeline walked toward him. Tristan stepped forward to close the distance, wrapping an arm naturally around her shoulders. He leaned down, whispering something in her ear, laughing. Madeline tilted her head up to listen. The curve of her jawline was the same gentle silhouette I had kissed 1,000 times. Then, Tristan let his arm drop, turned fully toward her, and pulled her into a deep embrace. Madeline went rigid for a second. But she didn't push him away. They held each other in front of the club, looking exactly like two star-crossed lovers reuniting against all odds. I sat in the back of the cab, watching them. And I felt nothing. Just a vast, hollow calm. That ridiculous, lingering hope was finally, permanently dead. I pulled out my phone, zoomed in on the embracing couple, framed the shot perfectly, and tapped the shutter button. Driver. Take me to the financial district. I need a law firm. The air conditioning in the conference room of the law firm was aggressively cold. I slid my phone across the polished mahogany table. The screen displayed the crisp photo of Madeline and Tristan locked in their embrace. The attorney sitting across from me, David Pierce, was a man in his late 40s, wearing wire-rimmed glasses and an aura of expensive competence. He adjusted his glasses, scrutinized the photo, and then looked up at me. His tone was clinical. Mr. Wright, a single photograph of an embrace in a public setting is insufficient to definitively prove infidelity in a court of law. Judges require a much higher burden of proof: explicit photographs, hotel receipts, incriminating text threads, or unexplained financial transfers. I smiled faintly and pulled the phone back. The proof is coming. David, I need you to draft the divorce settlement. My terms are very straightforward. She gets full custody of our daughter, and I walk away with every single cent of the marital assets I am legally entitled to. David raised an eyebrow, clearly taken aback by my lack of emotional distress, but his professionalism quickly masked it. Understood. I'll begin drafting the initial paperwork. However, I must advise you that if you can procure concrete evidence of marital misconduct, it will grant us significantly more leverage during the asset division phase. I'm aware. I stood up, buttoning my jacket. Email the draft to me when it's ready. I'll be waiting to sign. By the time I left the firm, it was early afternoon. I didn't go home. I wandered through a high-end department store, bought myself a tailored jacket I didn't need, and spent an hour getting a deep tissue massage. At 4 o'clock, I walked into my house carrying shopping bags. It was dead quiet. Predictably, Madeline wasn't home. I boiled some water and made myself a simple bowl of pasta. Just as I finished eating, my phone buzzed on the counter. An MMS message from an unknown number. I tapped the notification. It was a 10-second video file. The lighting was dim, clearly a private VIP booth. Madeline was pressed against Tristan's chest, her head tilted back, kissing him with a desperate, almost religious fervor. The resolution was high. You could clearly see the flush on Madeline's cheeks and the slight flutter of her eyelashes as she kept her eyes tightly shut. As soon as the video ended, a text message popped up from the same number. Cameron, a marriage only survives when a woman is actually in love with her husband. Don't you agree? I saved the video to a secure cloud folder. I took a screenshot of the text thread. Saved that too. At 7 o'clock, my phone rang. Madeline. Hey honey, I have a client dinner tonight that's going to run late. Don't wait up for me, just go to sleep. Her voice floated through the speaker. The background was entirely silent, far too quiet for a bustling restaurant or a corporate event. Got it, I said, keeping my voice utterly level. Don't drink too much. I hung up, walked over to the living room couch, and turned on the TV, putting on a mindless action movie. The movie was terrible. I fell asleep halfway through. Sometime in the middle of the night, in the hazy space between sleep and waking, I felt the mattress dip. Someone was slipping under the covers, moving with agonizing slowness. The faint, sweet stench of alcohol drifted through the dark. Madeline pressed her body against my back, wrapping her arms around my waist. She buried her face between my shoulder blades and whispered, so quietly it was almost a breath. I'm sorry. I didn't move a muscle. I kept my breathing deep and even, playing the sleeping husband to perfection. But in my head, I was laughing. A cold, hollow sound. What was this? A sudden flash of Catholic guilt after sleeping with another man? Or did she just feel pathetic and decided to throw a crumb of counterfeit affection to the husband she was destroying? Madeline held on to me for a while until her breathing evened out and she slipped into a deep sleep. I opened my eyes, staring into the dark room, watching the moonlight pool on the floorboards. My heart was a block of ice. Over the next few weeks, Madeline's overtime escalated aggressively. Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays. She always found a pristine excuse to stay out past 10. The project deadline was moved up. Entertaining a prospective client. Department team building. The excuses rotated, but the outcome was identical. She wasn't home. And Sophie, who used to spend only one night a week at her grandparents' house, was now being shipped off for 3 nights a week. Worse, every time Sophie came home, the way she looked at me grew a little colder, a little more disdainful. Daddy, why are you always in a bad mood? You look crazy. Daddy, why are you never home? Is it because you don't love me? I hate you. You're the bad guy. Go away, I don't want you here. I knew exactly what was happening. Tristan was already weaving his way into my daughter's life. The plot was unfolding flawlessly, just like the original script. Madeline would pack up our child and run off into the sunset with Tristan. And me? The supporting character was finally being written out of the story. But before I exited stage left, I was going to take every single thing I was owed. I quietly hired a forensic accountant to audit Madeline's personal and corporate assets. What I found was staggering. Over the past month, the deeds to 3 of our investment properties, her equity in 2 shell companies, and the bulk of her liquid savings had been quietly drained into an offshore account. The beneficiary of that offshore account? Tristan Crawford. But the detail that truly made my blood run cold was the corporate ledger. Madeline had embezzled $3 million directly from her firm's operational accounts and wired it straight to Tristan. I photographed every wire transfer, every doctored equity transfer, every forged property deed. I compiled it all into a meticulous, encrypted dossier. And I sent it to David Pierce. Half an hour later, David called me. His normally calm voice was vibrating with urgency. Cameron, what your wife is doing constitutes